Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we have a really special guest, Frank Cottle, founder and CEO of Alliance Virtual Offices and AllWork.Space. Frank is a pioneer in the flexible workspace industry with over 25 years of experience helping businesses worldwide adapt to virtual and hybrid work models. Background and innovative approach have made him a key figure in shaping the future of modern workspaces. Frank, it's great to have you.
Thank you and Michael for the opportunity to join you today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To say that I'm excited is an understatement here, so I'm ready to dive in.
I'll dive in first. You
Please.
shorted me. We started in the flexible workspace industry in 1980. We have 45 years. We are one of the true pioneers.
Wow.
We love what we do, and we loved being at the very front end of the industry.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah. And so how did that, because I know you probably have some experience before virtual office space and that sort of thing. Specifically, do you mind touching on that and leading into where that transition happened?
Not at all. I'm as old as I look. My career started in, let's call it 1969, 70. I started my career as a commercial diver, actually.
Oh, wow.
Working as a contractor for one of our U.S. federal agencies during the Vietnam era. And when I got married in 71, my wife and I decided that wasn't a good long-term job. Things going bump in the night and stuff like that. That wasn't a good idea. So I joined a yacht brokerage firm with some friends of mine, and we raced yachts and built a big brokerage. And I did that for about 10 years until I sold my interest out in 1980 and started a property company. I was trying to figure out a land banking theory. I come from a farming and ranching family. And how does a farmer get rich? He used to land with a big housing developer. A city gets named after the farm and that sort of thing. So I had land banking theory in my mind, and I decided that I would build commercial office buildings. And I was searching for the revenue stream. What model would develop the greatest amount of revenue per square foot. And I ran into this nascent industry, these funny little things called executive suite. And I thought, a normal guy gets $1 a foot, and an executive suite gets $250 a foot. What are they doing? So I figured it out, and I hired an architect, and I got a financial partner. And between 80 and 90, I built a whole bunch of buildings across the southwestern U.S., California, Arizona, and Texas. And we started as a property company. Sold the portfolio in 1990, and that's how we learned how to do things. But as we were doing that, we thought, what's a differentiator? Technology. You guys weren't even born probably. But
I do one for me.
but PCs, there were no PCs back then. I got my first PC. It was a compact, I think in 81 or 82.
Mm-hmm.
It had a hard drive in it. It had a 10 meg hard drive in it.
Ah, man.
Okay, woohoo!
Yeah.
So everything was still on minis or mainframes and terminals back then, and digital telephone switches were just beginning also. So rather than simply build a building, I built buildings and then created a partnership with AT&T and Bell Labs, and we simultaneously built the first commercial installation of simultaneous voice and data over 4-pair twisted cable, what you think of as Cat 5 or 6. And we tied a big digital phone switch together with a big mini computer. We built what's called a mux box to mix the signal up. And we pushed it out to terminals at every desk in these silly little executive suites that we built, which are about 35 to 50,000 feet. So they weren't that small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the terminals back then were pretty rudimentary. But AT&T, Bell Labs had built this experimental touch screen. So in 1980, I'm doing touch screen, simultaneous voice and data over a single terminal connected to my clerical secretarial core in the centers, et cetera, et cetera. So we pushed that. Then we got together with GTE and their GTE Smart Parts, which was the first commercial installation of ISDN. Real bandwidth, right? You don't remember 300 and 600 baud over modems with a telephone handset stuff. Okay. So we played with technology as we built these buildings. I had full video conferencing in 82 in all of our buildings. We played with this. We thought the big differentiator in real estate is going to be services. And the one service we can aggregate that an individual can't do themselves is technology. So we took our critical mass, aggregated the technology into our buildings, and built an entirely new model that was foundational to what you think of today as the business center and co-working center industry. We still up portfolio in 90 and then started up again with 2 more partners and accelerated it and built a whole bunch more centers across the U.S. We're the largest private operator in the world at that time.
Yeah.
And sold that portfolio in 2000. And the reason I wanted to sell the portfolio is I wanted to own the customer instead of the. And the reason I did that is look at a company, let's take WeWork as a good example today.
Yeah.
What killed WeWork? Was it marketing? No, marketing. Was it their site selection? No, they had great locations, everything. What killed them was debt on their balance sheet. Every time they opened a new center to get 300 or 400 or 500 new customers, they had to go find a space, sign a 10 or 15-year lease on that space, deal with the tenant improvements, deal with the furniture, fixtures, and all the technology going into it, pay the operating losses for a couple of years. And they try to negotiate free rent periods, but you could look at the line, the crossovers, say free rent stops here, rent starts here. That's where they're going to go bankrupt. You could just see it as plain if you were in our industry. So it was the balance sheet that was killing them, that debt of the lease. And we have that in our own company too, and it reduces the value of a company.
Right.
The example of that today would be a very good company called IWG, Internet Workplace Group. They own brands like Regis, Spaces, huge company, very well run company, everything. They're trading at 0.8 times revenue.
Wow.
Well,
They have 5,000 facilities in 110 countries with 20,000 employees servicing every major company in the U.S. And the balance sheet's killing them. So I decided that was a bad part of the model. I'll own the customer instead. So we built a technology platform to do that. And today we're the largest single aggregator of customers, virtual office clients primarily in the world. And that's where we are today. We're a technology company, half internet enabled or half technology enabled, half software service. I guarantee you our valuation is better than 0.8 for revenue.
Yeah.
So it's just, if you really focus on an industry and never leave it and use what you learned in one period and fortunately got lucky when you exited that and then that and that. If you stick with it long enough, you actually learn something about it, figure out a model that is sustainable and that has good valuation, and it's a lot of fun.
I'm curious how between 89, what you guys were doing in 89, to think about 2024, I'm sure there were some challenges in both eras, right?
Yeah.
Which era would you say is more challenging now, or was it more challenging then?
It was more challenging then. I had to explain it. I said, oh yeah, we do a co-working center. You guys both go, yeah, not. Nobody had heard of what an executive suite was or understood how it worked in the 80s and the 90s. And if you were to ask people on the street today even, they'd say, oh, yeah, like Regis or like WeWork or something. They really don't understand the model. How's it been until the pandemic where companies were forced into flexible workplace? They had no choice. The major companies, or just before the pandemic, major companies were looking at flexibility in real estate as a strategic component in a short-term tactical solution. And if you think about it, going back a decade or two, we could have built a company together. And if we had a really good product and enough capital, access to capital to scale that product, we'd be successful.
Yeah.
As soon as we got scaled and we ran into 2017, 18, 19, 20, and we didn't have flexibility, we'd probably be dead. Yep. Okay.
Right.
We'd have to restructure our entire facilities portfolio rethink the way hybrid work. We'd been talking about hybrid work in 2018. Yeah. We have to rethink the entire way that we manage our full workforce, et cetera. A good example, I think it's still accurate with Cisco. You look at Cisco and back from the mid-teens, we have 300,000 employees, whatever number it is. We have 300,000 employees. If you look at their corporate documents today, they said we have a workforce of 300,000. A third of those people are all contracted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, in one way or another. So employment models changed, the way facilities changed. I was just on the call with the head of future development from Gensler this morning.
Okay.
They just completed a survey of 16,000 employees across the base of the Fortune 1000. And their recognition, the corporate recognition that workspace in the office place is utilized approximately 42% of the time. Okay. They're paying for it 100% of the time, 24/7.
Right.
During an 8-hour day, it's used 42% of the time. That's a massive wasting asset.
100%.
Massively wasting asset. So we're seeing everybody cut back, shift their portfolios, the way people are managed. And today, a company needs that product, that access to capital, and a flexible business plan, or they will not survive tomorrow. So that big addition for the future that we have added through the last 10 years, and the pandemic was the stamp on it,
The catalyst,
that said flexibility or die, be flexible or die.
And not to cut you off, when I drive down the road sometimes with my wife and I look to my left and right and I see some of these restaurants and I think to myself, I'm like, there's no way they made it through COVID. They're in probably the worst real estate location possible. Half their sign doesn't work. And it's like, how are they still in business? So you start thinking to yourself, are they doing stuff under the table? But you think about what COVID forced a lot of these restaurant companies to do. Food delivery, Uber.
On two bases, by the way. During COVID, I just moved to Texas from Newport Beach in California.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, I moved to Texas. And in Newport, there was a local diner that was very popular, and I'd eat lunch there about every other day for 20 years. And when COVID hit, they stayed open at the back door.
Yeah.
Okay, the front door was closed, but the back door was open. So the regulars could still come in and get food service. But what they also did is they had commercial access to everything, and they became a micro grocery store.
Perfect.
Not on the shelf, but on a delivery basis. People would say, I need 10 pounds of this, 4 pounds of that, blah, blah, blah. It was like old style groceries, and Uber was there, yes. But these guys actually had their own staff delivering to local households around them when things were hard to get for a while during COVID.
That's
So
huge.
innovation, regardless of where it comes, necessity is the master of invention, or whatever that saying is. We all become innovators in a time of need.
100%.
And that's what we saw a lot of. And I think that's where we are right now with facility and employee management. We have to be innovator.
Yeah.
If we don't change, then you're going to be prey to Darwin.
Yeah. That's where like the rise of cloud kitchens, right? Like everything, like you're talking about flexible working space, everything became flexible, right? How can we spin up a restaurant with 0 storefront and deliver the same, almost the identical of having
Have shared kitchens. How can we have shared kitchens? Oh,
exactly everything, right? You have Crowd Kitchen, you have all these other startups that came out of necessity, right? It was innovation really does happen when there's a downturn in the economy, right? It always happens, right? COVID was one that was just very outwardly seen by a lot of people, but it happens all the time, right? We go through shape shifts and every 10 or so years, and innovators come out of there.
yep. No, that's truly true. And in our industry, the flexible workspace industry, it was hard in the 80s and 90s, first because there was a public education process and no vehicle by which to do it. No one was big enough to really buy Super Bowl ads, so to speak. So we couldn't educate the public. The other flip side, though, is the property companies which we're dependent upon as an industry. I've got to go to a building somewhere and build a facility inside of that building.
Mhm.
Property companies looked at our industry as being a little flaky. Hey, you got all these short-term tenants. We want IBM. We want, all these big companies as tenants. You're these little guys, these short-term tenants. They went into that mode. And we would laugh after 3 or 4 years, say, gosh, I've seen 3 building owners and I'm still here. That moves along. But the financial restriction, the developer wasn't the problem. It was the asset manager from the lender that was the problem on that. They require the property company, developer, to have tenants with a strong credit covenant. Okay, which our industry and our subtenants, if you will, or service tenants, were not. They refused to see in the aggregate that yield was more valuable than covenant. Today, that's changed.
Yeah.
Today, yield is more recognizable than covenant. Our industry has matured enough to where it's really one of the tenants of choice or partners of choice now, because many people, I would never sign a lease. You can show me the most beautiful building in the world. I'd say, I'm going to be your partner or I'm going to go next door. I would never sign a lease.
Interesting.
Most of the biggest companies won't today anymore. They're partnering with the landlords, giving the landlord an enhanced yield, but mitigating reducing the risk of that balance sheet exposure.
Yeah.
And making them sustainable. And WeWork missed that boat, but it will resurface again. It's like a hotel. A hotel is very expensive to build. And once a hotel is at a good location, just because it had a bad operator doesn't mean it's a bad building or a bad hotel. Another operator will come in and take it over. So with WeWork, another company has come in and taken it over now. They're a solid company, good tech company, with their self-capitalized, a private company. They'll probably make WeWork a success now by fixing what needed fixing, because they've had the benefit of a bankruptcy reorganization where they can cherry pick and do the things that are necessary to create a strong company, but a manager. So the concept won't go away.
Yeah.
People will run.
Which company bought them? Because last I heard, Adam Newman and his partners were going to try to buy back the company under their PE firm.
Right.
Did that actually go through, or did another company come in and take it?
Old news, fake news. Adam had a couple of private equity firms that he was talking to, and he was doing most of the talking. From what I understand, I don't know this, I'm just repeating rumors overall. But the company which actually purchased WeWork is the technology company, the accounting technology company, Yardi. Yardi.
So first time hearing that from me.
Yardi, who private company, he owns it, is the new owner of WeWork, and they own it through a special subsidiary just for that purpose, of course. They've appointed a new executive staff, et cetera. They're a very thoughtful company, and they're shedding debt and getting rid of all the stuff that was a massive burden, cleaning it up, and they'll probably make a success of it. It won't be the $47 billion valuation, which was all phony too. Because think about it. IWG is a company out of 4,500 locations. Okay. WeWork had about 650. IWG is worth $2 billion. WeWork's worth $47 billion. They're in the same business. IWG's making money. WeWork is losing money, $10 billion a year, $5 billion a year.
What valuation about technology, right? They're valuing it as a technology.
IWG should be worth 3 times WeWork, or WeWork should be worth 1/4 of IWG.
I agree.
This is pretty basic economics. You can't fight it.
Yeah.
For some reason, WeWork was able to perpetuate its myth and get that valuation for a moment in time. We worked with about 40 over the years, different financial institutions who rely upon us to help them analyze our industry. And about half of them would listen, and they invested a lot of money in WeWork. The other half went, running for the hills, and they didn't lose a lot of money on WeWork.
No.
But the market was split about 50-50 in believers versus non-believers. Very interesting phenomenon to watch.
It is.
Let's talk about the future, not the past.
Yeah, that's actually that's good.
As the market for this continues to evolve, especially since I'm curious, where do you see, you touched on it previously, but where do you see corporations down the road? Like how much time in your prediction, which how accurate that could be, but do you see corporations reaching a point where they absolutely have to use that model of virtual officing? Like what, because
this isn't, do we reach a point where they have to? They have been for the last decade, and now instead of it being 3% or 4% of their workforce, now it's 10 or 15% of their workforce.
Sure.
And by numbers, 2021 was a pretty rough year for a lot of companies. We had 91% growth. We've averaged over 40% growth every year over year organically. We don't have any debt. We don't have any outside investment, just organic growth year over year for the last 7 years now. And
which you love to see.
That is not us being more clever or more smarter than anybody. That is the increase in the market overall. And again, just I'll reference Gensler again. They're seeing that third workplace, which you've got the home and you've got the office, third workplace is us or a restaurant or a hotel or something else, is responsible ultimately for about 20 to 25% of all of the time spent in work activities by the end of this year. So if you think about it, if you were to think about it in terms of square footage, you would say about 1 in 5 floors of every major building in the U.S. should be a business or a co-working center.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's not that large yet. Our industry penetration in square footage is closer because it's more efficient the way the spaces is only about 3 or 4%. But it will get up to that 10 or 12% basis.
Wow.
And our industry is growing as fast as the PC industry was at its highlight, as fast as the cell phone industry is at its highlight. It's growing at 12, 13% a year just as an industry.
Yeah.
And
do you think,
go ahead, Michael.
Do you think moving from with the growth that you've had, you can say, let's look 7, 10 years out, do you think market conditions will continue to be there to sustain that type of growth? Or do you think there's a plateau in sight?
Everything plateaus at some point in time. And the old adage for real estate is location. We all agree on that. Wrong.
Timing.
Everything changes. The only thing that's static is the dirt under the building. So when we look at problems of the industry or the commercial real estate officing in general, the activity of going to and from and being in an office. When we look at that, it's very easy to say, Michael, you don't mind being in an office with your friends, your colleagues. It's nice. Same with you, Will. But you're not going to commute an hour and a half anymore to get there. You won't do it. Why? You've had a taste of freedom. You'll do it 1 or 2 days a week because you know it's important. You're not going to do it 5 days a week ever again.
Nope.
What does that mean? That means the IBM, I'll use IBM just because it's an easy name to throw out there. Let's assume they had 10 floors in a building in downtown Manhattan and their lease is up next year. Are they going to renew 100% of the space or are they going to grow the space? Probably not unless they've had massive growth, which could happen. Probably you're going to reassess it. People are out of the office 2 days a week. I got this hot desk thing going. I got co-working. I've got hybrid. I think I'm going to renew 70% of the lease. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the building did that. So now you've got a 1 million square foot building with 300,000 square feet of vacancy. And they've already got all the big clients. There are no, the Fortune 1000 is the Fortune 1000. Somebody's growing somewhere, of course. But there's this massive vacancy factor. And it comes to this shift in the way we work. So what are you going to do with that space? What's the problem in Manhattan? The cost of housing.
Yes.
Cost of housing. Today I read a nice article about yet another 200, 300, 400,000 foot building being converted to residential. What's that going to do to the
Entirety
cost
of it
of
or
housing?
a portion?
Supply is going to go up. What does that do to the economy of the city? Instead of being a 12-hour city, it becomes a 24-hour city. And how good is that for all the little businesses? Those are all going to grow. So the evolution that we've got going here is like a gene pool shift a little bit. The dirt's not going anywhere. Manhattan's not going anywhere. The buildings are too expensive to build. You're not going to tear them down in most cases, or in 99% of the cases, and say, oh, let's build something else here, because there's too much value there. But you're going to change the way the building is used to add more value to everything around it. And repopulate the city, because we all agree you hate that commute in from Long Island or New Jersey or Connecticut, wherever it was. That's what you hated about your work. And fixing that one thing in commuter-dependent cities is massive. So that will happen. The other thing that happens is when we talk about timing and location, flexible work facilities, the fastest growth in our industry is not in central business districts. It's in the secondary suburbs.
Okay.
The next, the closest in business district where you can drive in there in 10 minutes, jump out of your car, run into your office, do what you're going to do. And if you have to get downtown, it's only a half hour away. Yeah. But it's 10 minutes from your house and half an hour from your downtown, whatever. Those are the locations that people are gravitating to. So small towns that have been abandoned and just had a commuter train station in them and sent everybody to Manhattan 2 years ago are being repopulated and revitalized as well.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing.
100%. Go for it.
When my wife and I just had our first baby, he's 8 months as of yesterday. And so obviously in a time like 2024 with inflation being the way it is. And I was actually curious, I missed the opportunity to ask you about it earlier, and maybe we can circle back to it. I'm curious why you chose the Metroplex specifically for your destination coming into Dallas, because I'd like to hear from your perspective in terms of the growth that's happening here. But
my family originally was from Texas, and part of the family split off and went to California in the 1830s. And so we've been in both places for a long time. And when I decided to move from California, it was based on taxes. California is pretty egregious, pretty grabby at everything. And I wasn't impressed with the way they're spending the money. You had 3 choices to make that decision. I could stay and be mad. Overall, I could go to another country or another place, or I could stay here and move to a spot where the taxes I thought were more reasonable and I thought it was better spent.
Yeah.
So I came back to family roots here in Texas and decided that I'd always lived down in Newport Beach area, Orange County, and south of LA. And Orange County is a small, very successful, very strong financial community, very well near the area. And I looked around the Metroplex. I didn't like Houston. Weather.
I spent time there,
yeah. The airport's not great.
No.
I'm used to DFW. I've had done business here for a long time. Austin, the airport's not great. Again, Austin's a nice city though, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And any city whose micro slogan is keep Austin weird, it just, it wasn't.
And I'll leave out the fact that I was born there then.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I looked around Dallas, but Dallas to me seemed like LA. And the nicer neighborhoods, the older neighborhoods, which I have a preference for, were in the middle of the city. And so you were in a nice island surrounded by a sea of commercial, not as nice, a whole bunch of things that I thought, I don't want to be in the middle and be on an island. And the newer communities to the north. Some of them are lovely and stuff. Matching McMansions is not my style.
Yeah.
So I settled on Fort Worth, which is smaller, quieter. There are 3 or 4 very nice neighborhoods that are older and very comfortable, and decided I'd plop down here, and I've got a nice parcel and a river that runs through my backyard, a big old dumb Texas house, and what can I say?
That's wonderful. And because we're all here in the Metroplex and the significant growth that we're seeing here, especially considering I've got a tenure in safety, and I work currently with a company that's helping to pioneer the growth of the Metroplex from an aggregate perspective. So I'm in the transportation business, and things are just growing. Things are growing very rapidly, and of course drives. And this is going back to what you guys were talking about previously, which was the commute to get to work. Me bringing up my wife having our first child, we had to consider the fact that, okay, childcare in McKinney, which is where we're located, is roughly part-time, about $2,250 a month. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And talking with companies like hers, and I won't mention names just in case, that there's still that tether, that resistance to go to that fully remote, because they were fully remote. They sent pretty much probably a majority of their colleagues and employees remote during COVID. And then they did a refreshing or refurbish of the office, I guess, maybe to suck people back into that environment. But
pretty common, by the way, that a lot of that has happened.
Yeah. But I'm curious how employees doing remote work, specifically during that COVID period of time, how that helped to enhance the model and market of what you guys offer specifically for companies, because as they come back and they start to realize that, like, my opinion, and so is my wife's, she works, I'd say, easily 30% better at home than she ever did in the office. And I know there's a sense of camaraderie when you're there. And like you said, you want to be with your friends.
Yeah, all those things are important. We're faced with outrageous costs for things like childcare on the one hand, and even for commuting.
Fuel. Yeah.
We're faced with the time it takes to do that, which takes you away from your family, and the costs that come with that. We're also faced with a loneliness epidemic, though.
Yeah.
So with wellness as an issue, not being in a social environment where you can exchange ideas freely of this and that, and you have a comfort zone, it's not good for most people. Purely remote. Did you ever see a happy hermit?
No.
They're always scraggly and weird. You saw the movie and you never saw the joyful happy hermit. Okay. So people are gregarious by nature. We're animals. We're herd animals to some degree, and we like to be around other people. We also, though, like to concentrate and focus. We also like to have a life separate just from our work life. And I think my dad might have helped me understand that when I was young. He said a long time ago that life, or the way we live, is like the cavemen. During the day, we go out and chase mastodons and gather berries and that sort of thing. But life is when you go back to the cave and sing songs and put paintings on the wall.
Yeah.
The reality is we have two existences that are both are equally important. One is to be productive and feed our family. The other is to have a joyous spiritual relationship with others, not in a religious sense, but in a sharing sense, anything else. And without both of those things, we're just not happy as human beings. The change that we will continue to see evolve is a continuous and slow evolution, not what I hope is a violent revolution in anything. Revolutions are always good for the first 3 years, then they backtrack anyway.
Yeah.
You don't want any of that. There's an old saying, and I think it's a Russian saying, that said that after 10 years, all revolutionaries have to put on glasses. And they aged. They see things differently.
Yeah.
And so we want a continuous evolution as we have as a species. Hope we have as a species, at least. We want to see the same thing socially in the workplace, productivity in the workplace, etc. So people are being judged more by their productive output now than by presentism, by being present at the office. If your wife is 30% more productive out of the office, I would bet that's probably true if she's out of the office 1 or 2, maybe even 3 days a week.
Yeah.
But if he's out of the office 5 days a week, that productivity will actually go down.
Yeah.
And keep going down until she levels out and maybe isn't as productive as she's flatlined or below. So we need both things. And we've been saying for a decade now that there is no such thing as an office occupier anymore. They are all travelers. And so we define that a little bit by nomadism, an easy way, because everybody's heard of a digital nomad, right? We've all heard of a digital nomad. Michael, you with a surfboard, me with a guitar, Will, you with a laptop. We all go to Bali. We live in a hostel. We'd have some gig that feeds us and clothes us. We're happy digital nomad. Okay?
Yeah.
But there's also a digital slow man. Will,
Ooh, okay.
a transportation company. Michael, you work for a publisher. I work for a tech company. We all have jobs, but we decided we'd actually like to live in Paris for 6 months. And we just do our job remotely from Paris. Well, maybe there's a local office in Paris we can interface with. We have jobs, so that we're moving around slowly. Likely, we're what we call nomads. A local nomad. A nomad. Okay? I have a work from my office at home where I am now. I have an office that's about 12 or 15 minutes away where I can do other types of work, where I can meet people, have conference rooms, all that sort of thing. I have 2 restaurants I like to have lunch in when I meet people in work, and I have 2 restaurants in Fort Worth I like to have dinner in where I meet. I know them well. I'm comfortable there. They know me. I can hold a meeting there anytime. So that's my local nomadism. Here are 4 workplaces that are all equally comfortable to me and are each productive for a specific purpose. And that's really what we all are. We are all nomads, at least now, and travelers. We're not just office occupiers anymore.
I like that.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting. I like the 3 perspectives there. It's funny. I've always considered myself a nomad of sorts. I think I've probably moved about 30 times in my life. And since my wife and I moved up here to the Metroplex from Midland, Odessa, West Texas, which is where she comes from, and I spent a good period of my youth at as well. We've been here 8 years. I think we moved 7 times in 8 years. So there's a sense of, I think I have a reluctancy to want to pull the trigger on settling in one area just because I keep things very tight. I've got a pillow every time that we've moved. It's always, and she's going to look back at this and watch this episode and probably smack me over the top of my head. But it's always, honey, why do you have all this stuff? What are we doing? It's because I've got a pillow and some clothes and a laptop or something along those lines. So I think that the perspective of nomad is something that I
nomad, if you look at some of the greatest societies on earth were created by nomads.
Yeah.
Nomadic peoples.
Right.
Knowledge was transferred by nomadic peoples. Trade was created by nomadic peoples. Commerce was created. Money was created because you couldn't barter across distances. So nomadism might be seen as being impermanent, but it's really one of the most permanent structures that we as a human species have had. If you look at it, it allows us to do all variety of things that sitting in one place just won't do. So I'm all in favor of it. And that takes us back full circle to the future of work and things like hybrid work and remote work and all of that. Yes, it's all going to happen, period.
Absolutely.
It is happening. It will continue to happen. Pretty soon, we'll all be joining Elon Musk and we'll be nomading in another star system. Well,
there you go.
Like your joints to get there, but the reality here is that as a species, we like to move around. We like to learn things. We like to experience things. Do you, as an individual, go to the same place at the same time of year every year on vacation? Or does your wife say, honey, we've been going to that fishing camp for the last 40 years. I think it's time I went to Paris. We like to see different things. We like to hear different things. It's how we grow. And I feel really fortunate in that we have offices, and I've been able to travel all over the world. We have offices in 54 countries now, and the ability to learn from other people, even discussing the same business, the same things you think, but they know it differently than you do, even though the outcome is the same. That's something we all should continue to do. And that's part of nomadism.
I'm curious what'd you say is a differentiator between, especially from a demographic standpoint? You guys span over, I believe, 800 locations, correct? More or less.
Ourselves? We have about
Correct.
1,500 locations, about 1,500.
1,300.
Okay. So you guys are worldwide at this point. So what would you say that demographic, the change there in the culture of hybrid work as well as virtual work is affecting different places?
That's good.
Some countries are more open to it. Certainly. It's more their tribal style, if you will. We have a tribal style here in the U.S. The Brits have theirs, the French have theirs, etc. Actually, in France, it's illegal to work, but that's a different story. Everybody has their own style, their own interpretation of the things that are important to them. And I had a competitor once, and we had a facility in Beijing that we were figuring out, and they had a couple or three facilities in Beijing, and they hired local management. It was a tough market time, being fair to everybody. It's a very tough time in the market and very difficult to figure out how to do business in China at the time. And they were very unhappy with the local management. So their solution was they brought a full team in from London to fix it. We, on the other hand, hired their local management at our new facility and gutted them because the locals wanted to deal with them. People that understood their culture, people that understood and could intuit their needs, people that did things their way. And that's true everywhere. You're from Texas. You're from West Texas. When I got here, most people said to me, don't California my Texas. Okay, don't you bring your culture here to my culture. Okay, I had to explain to them I had a family county and ancestors at both the Alamo and the Battle of Guadalupe defending that cannon. So I'm more Texas than most of the people here. Most of the people in Texas actually moved here from New York, moved to Dallas, and pretend they're from Fort Worth. But I have that story. But we all like to protect our culture, and we all like to work within, and no one should change that. But core issues of economics, feeding your family, how you earn money, integrity in business, relationships in business, none of those things really change. It's very important in some cultures. Relationship is much more important than a contract. Contracts don't solve problems. Relationships do.
I agree.
In other environments, California is a good example. California, New York are exceedingly litigious contract-related states. And relationship then is less important because the contract is everything. When the reality is it isn't. The contract can't fix stuff. People can. So different cultures, different ways of dealing with stuff. We all want the same thing. We want comfort. We want time with our family. Want to not be fearful. Change is okay so long as it happens at a pace that we understand it. We like stability. No country in the world would argue. You couldn't get a politician to argue against any of those things.
Yeah.
We are a little defensive of ourselves, though. We do all military. We like a national identity that we can understand. And I know it for a time, people would say, where are you from? And I'd say, I'm from California. Because I identified in my youth more with California than I did with the U.S. Okay, especially when I was traveling a lot in my youth. That was my identity. I've changed that and I've grown that to where now I'm not a Californian or even a Texan. I'm an American. Okay, I have more of a national identity than a local identity. And that's important for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because being from West Texas, I grew up all over Houston. Being born in Austin, I spent some time there, spent some time in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I spent 7 years in Houston. And then I spent, I think, at least 14, 15 years out there in West Texas. And I look at West Texas, you can drive between Midland and Odessa within 20 minutes, right?
Yep.
And you have family ties in just outside of Lubbock, correct?
Actually, in the Cottle County up near Paducah.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a lot easier to traverse around there. And so you get this idea that even there's a divide. You think about Permian versus OHS. My mom went to school with Booby Miles and that whole story. But if I say, yeah, I'm from West Texas, and people go, which one, Midland, Odessa? I'm like, it's the same thing. It's West Texas. And they go, no, it's one or the other. And it's the same thing up here. I can go, hey, yeah, I know you're from the Metroplex. And they're like, no, I'm Texoma, or I'm Fort Worth. In my opinion, it's my identity is when you're a part of an area of growth. If you're a part of Houston, you have Humble and all these other different areas, but it's all Houston in my book. We're all part of this process, this ecosystem.
One of the differences, I believe, is I've come back to Texas, and so I think of Texas as a whole and as a part of the United States. Where in California, I felt I was from Newport Beach and Orange County. That was my identity. It wasn't the full state. It certainly wasn't LA. Okay. I think when you grow up somewhere, you identify with it differently than when you move somewhere, even if it's close by. Your neighborhood and the experiences you had that were formulative in your neighborhood that you grew up. This is true in business too. That industry you grew up in, it adds a comfort level just like a neighborhood. And we don't like to leave those things. We like to identify with them. It gives us comfort and strength at times based on, to a great degree, relationship.
How does Alliance work around that theory, right? Because we're talking about taking pride in where you live. Texas loves its borders, and to identify as Texans, I always like to tell people it's not Texas that makes Texas, it's the Texans here, right? Yeah. So when people come here and they go, I thought Texas was going to be different. I'm like, it's the people, it's not the place. It is somewhat, but how does Alliance Virtual Offices, how do you guys as a company, as an entity grow right into the future? Do you feel like it is really reliant on outside of the border or the walls of Alliance with partnerships to forge that growth? Or does that happen more internalized?
Two things. First, we have always been historically in this company, so call it since 2000 or so, 2002, we've always been a distributed company.
Okay.
Our executive team is multinational, always has been, and distributed in different states and cities in the United States. So that was our culture to start with, was a distributed company. And part of that was out of need, and part of it was out of empathy. I looked at forming a position. Hey, I need a new marketing guy. I need a new head of marketing. Who's the best guy I can find? Of all places, Lexington, Kentucky. He's got a small farm there. His wife and kids are there. His family's there. He's from Lexington. I have a choice. I can make him a job offer and entice him to move to California, buy his farm, make sure he's got financing for a new house in California, which is going to be scruffy by comparison to the place he had in Kentucky. Not going to be nearly as nice, cost value for money. Overall, I can unroot his children. I can make them move and leave their schools. I could probably force his wife away from her family. Or I can say, hey, this is a funny thing. We've been using video since the 80s, and there's these things called airplanes, and let's get you an office in Lexington. You just stay here and enjoy life. He's been with me for 20 years now, that fellow.
Oh, wow.
I've never lost a single senior executive in a company I started, ever. So my management team now, we have well over 150 years of corporate experience together.
Wow.
So it's You find the best person wherever they are, and then you make them as comfortable as you can afford to in the place where their family is. And that's the empathy side. It cost me 3 times as much to move him. That was a bad deal. Okay. So I'd have to look for the second best guy who was closer and cheaper, but the best guy. Family. Think about the family. Don't think about the person, but think about their whole family, and not just the husband, wife, and a couple of kids, but their parents and their cousins and their aunts and uncles.
Heritage, yeah.
Family, and then say, where's that person going to be happiest? And when you cross borders, it's a little different. You're still looking for that very best person, but whenever you cross a border and you change a culture, a currency, an economy, a culture, a legal system, etc., you really do need a partner. So you can go and do it alone, or you can find the best person again, and you can invest in their company, or you can have them invest in your company, or you can invest in a joint venture. You don't make as much immediate profit. It costs you a different level of effort.
Right.
Long term, you build a structure of value that is sustaining. So we have the philosophy, if you cross a border, you need a partner. And so we're a professional partnership creation company, if you will, all over to have that method of operation. We have 2 types of partners, our operating partners within country, and then that work inside of our company, and then our facility partners of the places that service us and our clients.
Do you feel like that helps your company as a whole be more proactive than reactive, considering the demographic is so expanded?
Yes. If I'm doing everything centrally from Texas now, I see the Texan view and U.S. view, and then the North American view, and then after that, probably the UK view, because we have a lot of business over there. But if I have partners, we have a business theory, we call it pebble in a pond. Okay. You've got a pond somewhere around your house. There's a pond, right? It could be a cattle pond. It could be any kind of thing in the pebble. You throw a rock in the middle of that pond, and there's a wave pattern starts to emit. The pond's not shaped perfectly square. That wave isn't going to hit all the walls of the pond at the same time. One place it's shallow, another place it's deep. One place is a little further away. One place has reeds in it. The wave pattern is going to be different. But the pebble dropped somewhere. And as a larger company, the more you can see pebbles dropping in individual pond, the more you can assess what you should do and how you should act and react. So
Interesting.
we talk about diversity in one sense here, but diversity of cultures in different countries and marketplaces is a tremendous strength if you can harness it. So our diversity of cultures within our company is one of our strengths. Something happens in Japan, that pebble dropped in Japan, what's the wave going to look like when it hits the North American marketplace? Okay.
Yeah.
What happened there that might happen here? And I'll use pandemic as a good example. We have friends and operations in China and in Italy, all over, but in those 2 places is where we made our decision. And I'm talking to buddies over in China, and so they said, yeah, we got this problem over here, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm talking to friends in Italy over in 2019, and they say, yeah, we got this problem, and all the Chinese are doing it. And I'm going, I'm an old guy. I've been around, and I've seen stuff before. The shit's going to hit the fan. 2020, in January of 2020, I told everybody I wanted the entire company to be able to function remote within 60 days.
Wow.
Okay. We were remote as a company, completely, fully operational, fully tech, fully staffed by March of 2020.
Wow.
That's why we were able to take advantage of growth in 2020, 2021, and 2022, when everybody else is still trying to figure out how to scramble. And yes, some of our people had COVID problems. Very simple policy. Your problem is no problem. You got a family problem. You have a family member that needs help. Take time off. You're not feeling well. Take time off. Do not worry about it. This is not vacation time. This is not personal. This is just, you're covered. We got your back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's huge.
Gratitude for being human versus corporate has paid 10 times. That wasn't our intention. We still do that today. If somebody, we're a team. And if you have a problem, Will, you expect Michael to cover you. Okay. And our whole company feels the same way. If somebody on one of the teams has a problem, the rest of the team needs to step up and cover them, because one day they might have a problem.
Absolutely.
And corporately, we always allow for any emergencies, any family leave, anything whatsoever. It's always no questions asked. You just as much as you need. You need a month, that's fine. Your job's sitting here for you. And it's just being human.
Yeah.
And it's not expensive. You save money doing that.
Great.
Your churn on employees or turnover of staff, everything is so much better. And that staff change is massively expensive in large companies. Massively expensive. And we overhired by 15,000 people, so we're going to give them all pink slips. We were too zealous trying to compete against this other company, and we were trying to steal engineers out of the marketplace. We didn't really need them. And now that company's not hiring, so we'll let them go. All this bullshit that requires people is something that we have to deal with.
Right.
That it has to be, we have to have a more empathetic way of looking at everything in that feature of work that we're talking about.
I think that comes from, like you said earlier, organically growing. The first company I worked for in the oil field when I first came out of college, my first year of college, was the growth that we saw in a 2-3 year period organically versus there was an acquisition merger, I guess better to say it that way. And things didn't go the same after that. So I feel playing the long game in terms of taking care of your employees, I have the same approach to my safety perspective in the way that I address things on site or things within the workplace when it comes to workforce safety and that sort of thing, is taking the necessary time to, like you said, human on human interaction goes so much further than any scripted policy or procedure that you can read out of a handbook, which you have to follow it. But those interpersonal skills of being able to address the things that people need in real time have a lasting effect, like you said, ripples that return larger than they left, is what I've seen. Yeah.
No, I really think that's true. And it's not hard. It's actually easier.
Yeah.
And you just have to play your own game and not somebody else's, and then it happens.
Yeah.
I'm curious if kind of giving some insight into a young entrepreneur that's trying to get into whether something that's already being done on a large scale platform in terms of the operation or project versus also to one that might be trying to pioneer a new path, especially with integration of AI and different tech accessibilities that we have. What would you?
First, I would say become the best student of your industry.
Yeah.
Industry. Take the time, whether it's during what you consider working hours or after hours, personal time, to become really the best student. The test is lifelong. The test is every day that you take. And if you become the best student, you will pass those tests better than everyone else. So that lends you an air of comfort. And another thing I guess I would say, a little quickie story. When I was going to college, the first college I went to, they asked me not to return because I'd been absent for a quarter. I did everything, this is just 60s, so it was strange then. But everything, I took everything remotely and passed up my finals and everything. But they said, no, you're not a good student here. We don't want you here anymore. You're going to kick me out. My dad had been paying for all this. My family had been paying for a very expensive private college. And they didn't know I wasn't there, but I was down in the Bahamas. Into that, which I won't go into. But so I got back and I had to explain to my dad about what had happened. I said, hey, I had a long drive home from Illinois to back to California.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I'm going, well, I'm going to tell my dad, look, you got to tell him it is what it is. You got to just say it. So I said, hey, here's what happened. Here's why it happened. My dad, again, come from a farming, ranching background and everything. He looked at me very quietly, and this would be the advice. He said, you just had an experience. Did you learn anything? And I said, yeah, decisions have consequences. He said, yep, remember it. And he walked away.
Yeah.
And
Decisions are
I
consequences.
think but the story lends itself to decision making. Everybody in a company has to be a decision maker on their own, or they slow every other person in the company down. So learn to make decisions, recognizing that most of them will be wrong. 60% of the decisions you make will be wrong, 40% of them will be right. Learn to cut the bad ones off quickly.
Yeah.
Don't ride a dead horse. There's an old saying, the best way to make a dead horse go faster is to tie two of them together. There's no dead horse standing. So the key there is really learn to make your good decisions stick. And if you've made a bad decision, change it quickly. Maybe you'll make a second bad decision or a third bad decision, but if you make enough of them, pretty soon you'll make a good decision. You can let that run long. Okay?
Absolutely.
So let the good ones run long and let those grow, but don't ever be afraid of making decisions. Don't ever let anybody limit you and say, oh, if you want permission to do that, you come to me. I'm out of there. I do not want to work with that company. Work for a company that says, if you don't make a decision, I'm going to fire you. You make the decision. Otherwise, you don't belong here.
Do you have a lot of companies that you hear great leaders, right? The Bezos of the world and all these amazing entrepreneurs, and they always have like some type of decision framework. Do you have a decision framework? But what does that look like for you in your experience and your successes and how?
Yes, I do, and we do as a company. We refer to our customers as members because we think they're part of our organization, not a separate, detached body. We have a decision at the board level and at the executive level that just says simply members first. And if it's good for the member, we're going to do it. If it's not good for the member first, then we're going to probably avoid doing it. That sometimes creates a conflict because, it's a little more expensive to do it that way. It's a little more expensive to make a really good cheeseburger than a cheap cheeseburger. Okay. But you know what? Your customer comes back. Members first. And internally within the company, it's family first. All of our decisions are made around what's best for the families of the people that work for them. And again, sometimes that's more expensive. But in the long run, the loyalty that you gain and the satisfaction you gain on a personal level, there's not an executive in our company that isn't proud of the decisions they've made to support our team.
I like that. That's good.
That's pride. It's not boastful pride. That's quiet pride. And those are the two core decision-making criteria that we've been using, that I've been using in my companies for 45 years. And structurally, we say service to sales and sales to service. So service to sales means everything we build is built to service the sales department. All the anything we build is built to service the sales department. And every sale we make is made through superior service, not just product and price. So we have those two little twists back and forth. That's pretty much the way we run everything. I have for 45 years and hasn't really changed much.
Seems to be working.
It kind of is. We're happy with it. I think that more than anything else is what's important. Once you have enough money to feed your family, live in a house that you can keep clean and is not shameful, if you will, and you have a few things that you enjoy, or maybe a hobby or something, and you can get your kids to good school. Once you have that much money, you're successful.
Agreed.
So many people don't think they're successful till they have 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. Oh, I got to be. You're doing comparative success. One thing I've learned in life, and I've learned in the yachting industry when I first started, there's always somebody that's got a bigger one. Does small money.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, instead have the better one. And don't worry about bigger will take care of itself.
I agree.
So
I love it. I love it, man. Frank, thank you so much for your time here and sharing some of your background as well as what your company's doing and the impactful things. I do want to give you a plug for the great things that Future of Work are doing as well. If you want to go ahead and share with our listeners where they can listen to the Future of Work podcast and some of the things you guys discuss. And
we have three companies, but two of them that we're talking about here, Alliance Virtual Offices, which can be reached at alliancevirtualoffices.com. We provide virtual officing, our meeting rooms, our virtual telephony, and live reception services globally. And the other company that you're referencing is a company called AllWork.Space. It's a digital media company, and it's really a publication. We're very proud we started that. Everybody referred to it as Frank's hobby. We started it in 2017, and today we're in the top 4.5 to 10% of all websites worldwide and top 5% of all podcasts worldwide.
incredible.
Our focus is on the future of work. That's where our focus is. And we bring in subject matter experts that are usually published and credentialed so that they're truly experts, not like me, I'm just a hack, but true experts from around the world to share their knowledge and experience. And we're very fortunate ourselves to be able to even listen to many of those podcasts because the information that those experts share is priceless. It's just a joy to hear and understand. It also makes a really good circle of friends at a great party about once a year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
And congratulations on the position 2 on the Inc. 5000 list.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, that two years running now in the Inc. 5000, so that's nice. And the good news is they're 2 years running. The bad news is we didn't apply until 2 years ago.
There you go.
So we should have applied 5 years ago, but we thought, I don't know. And then we finally, as our CFO said, that he'll throw our hat in the ring and see what happens.
We're just excited to see how the growth continues and how the model continues to evolve and how the market adapts it and utilizes it moving forward. We might find our way at a virtual office space of your caliber at some point. Who knows?
You know, it's interesting. One of the amenities in a lot of the better business and co-working centers now is a professional podcast booth. That is now an amenity that is being built into a lot of the facilities because there's a need for people to share information and to have the professional structure to do that as part of the facility.
Maybe in the future, we'll get a chance to dive a little deeper down another path. So thank you for your time.
Give me a call. Happy to help anytime.
Excellent.
Thank you, Frank. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Take care.